Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope well, this presentation will be slightly different from what you might have read in the website. I will explain why in a minute, but bear with me. I hope to not disappoint you. Well, I'm Adriano Belisario, and as I said, we needed to replace the person who would present with me, which is Ruth. I invite you to know more about her work. Unfortunately, she didn't manage to get her visa on time, so Dani kindly agreed to replace her, and we will present together. As I said, it will be slightly different from the description, but again, I hope to not disappoint you. So here is Ruth's website. Again, please check her work. And let me introduce myself to kick off the session. I'm a journalist. I've been working with data-driven investigations for some years. Here I will present this second project that I mentioned there. I use data science, AI, and other methodologies to help grassroots communities to create evidence, especially for human rights abuse in Latin America. And I'm from Brazil. I must say. And I will present here this project that I developed at the Oxford Internet Institute in partnership with a Brazilian organization named Fogo Cruzado, which means crossfire. And currently, I've been working in different projects. I've been using AI also to tackle online misogyny on YouTube. We've been doing our research about it. I'm glad to talk, to discuss more about these other projects. But here I will focus specifically in this second project, which is basically, let me go back. We have developed a model to help human rights analysts to monitor firearm violence using social media in Brazil. As you may know, firearm violence is a major issue in Brazil, and there are multiple organizations trying to monitor. We lack official data on gun violence events, and this organization, they've been collecting social media data and fact-checking social media data on the ground source to identify new events of gun violence and provide real-time alerts. But before getting to this, into the details of this project, I'd like to start with a brief distinction, which maybe some of you might be familiar with these concepts, but I guess it's important to highlight the difference between AI and generative AI, which is definitely not the same thing, although we have, let's say, ChatGPT as the major brand when it comes to AI currently. Not all AI is dedicated to generate text. We have multiple applications for AI. The project that I will show you is not generative AI. It's an AI model used for classification. So it doesn't generate text, it just classifies text. I will explain more in a bit. But Dani will show another example that actually uses generative AI. So it would be good to have both perspectives on this. So this is what I would say maybe it's the mainstream of AI, right? When we think about AI, we usually talk about large language models. We usually talk about proprietary and black box models that are general purpose models, which basically they are sold, the companies try to sell these models as assistants that could help you with everything. Like it's a one-size-fits-all solution. And it's also cloud-based, which means that we don't control these models. They run in third-party platforms, they run in third-party servers. And of course, this implies, and there are several implications in terms of privacy, in terms of, well, because they are very large, there are a very high environmental costs to run these models, to train these models. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time to go into the details of all the problems involved with this current state of AI, but I would like to to contrast this vision, this criteria here, with another perspective that I believe that's more aligned with what we need in the Global South, but not only in the Global South. I guess that what I envision as the future for AI models might be helpful for every community-based initiative or every project that cares about autonomous technology and open source technology. So instead of having large language models, I argue that we could, and there are a lot of people arguing the same, that we could use small language models, open source models, instead of proprietary black box models that we don't know, which kind of data they have trained these models. And instead of general purpose models, we could have task-oriented models, which means basically, let's say you could have a model that would help you to write codes, and then maybe you could have another model that would help you to, I don't know, review your grammar, or another model that would help you with a different task. These models can be self-hosted. I mean, you can run some of these open source models in your laptop, in your own web server, and they can be customized to meet your needs, right? And next, I will showcase a project, a model that I have developed. During my research at the Oxford Internet Institute, as I said. So, here we go. This organization, Fogo Cruzado, it's an NGO in Brazil, and they use social media data and also on-the-ground source to monitor gun violence events. So basically, people, if there is shootings happening, people use the social media to report these episodes. And they basically they monitor almost 20 hours a day. They monitor online media source to identify these reports, and then they fact check these reports and provide both real-time alerts, so people that lives in these neighborhoods, they can be aware that there may be something dangerous going on, but they also create a data set that is used for advocacy and that's used in many legal actions to claim for better public policies to tackle these problems. And here is what the analysts use it to see when they monitor tweets. So this is the kind of standard way to monitor very human intensive. They basically need to scroll down this huge list of posts to try to identify a gun violence report. But it's a keyword-based search. So basically 99%, almost, it's very difficult to identify the gun violence report because most of these social media posts, they might use a keyword or a specific expression related to gun violence, but they might be talking about a different thing. So it's a kind of, you need to find the needle in the haystack, right? It's very difficult and very intensive. It requires a lot of human labor and cognitive effort to review all these posts and find the gun violence reports there. So every time they find a report, they reply to the user asking follow-up informations. So where is this event? When did it happen? And they've been doing this for several years. So what I've done is I've collected all these interactions over 7 years. And then I created a model. I used this interaction as label data to train an open source model. I fine-tuned an open source model that aimed to help these analysts to identify gun violence reports. So instead of reviewing all the posts, all the contents, they have a kind of a classifier that helps to highlight which posts, which content they should focus to identify these reports, to identify these gun violence reports. Yeah, so it's an open source model, And here is the prototype that I've developed with the Fogo Cruzado team. So instead of having these columns with several unrelated posts, they have a very nice table. Here we can see basically all these texts here are contents that the model classified as gun violence reports. So they don't need to reveal all of that unrelated content. I need to speed up a bit now, but just as maybe the final takeaway from my speech, I'd like to say that size isn't everything. Most of the companies, the large companies, they try to sell this idea that you need a larger model, you need to, to use these personal assistants that being trained in on massive amounts of data. But what I argue is that sometimes smaller is better. Sometimes you can use smaller models that can outperform, including ChatGPT. So for instance, this is a graphical representation of the number of parameters in the models. So this little circle right here represents the number of parameters of the model that I developed. And this huge circle is the number of parameters of GPT-3, which is not even the latest model, right? But even using a smaller model, because we have trained with our data, we have fine-tuned this open source model with our data, we managed to outperform ChatGPT in this very specific task of identifying gun violence reports in Portuguese. So they've been using this model for for some months right now. Currently, we have other problems in terms of data access to Twitter, as you might be aware that have been some changes on Twitter. But I don't have time to get into the details. I will hand over to Danny, which will present another project. Thank you, Danny, for accepting the invitation.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adriana. And of course, we're very sorry that Ruth couldn't come. But I really wanted to honor the goal of the panel. So just a little bit about me. I work at Ashoka, which is a global network of social entrepreneurs. I also have just started the Ashoka AI Lab, so we're starting to explore how we can use AI to accelerate social innovation. But what I wanted to share with you today is one innovation that we have in our network, which I think really exemplifies the potential of using AI to make social change. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to talk a lot. If you can do yes. So this project is called Jugalbandi. It was created, I don't know if anyone has heard about it, but it was created by an organization in India called Agami, and specifically by the OpenAI initiative of Agami. So they developed a platform that leverages generative AI to make information accessible via WhatsApp. I actually have a video. I could talk a lot about it, but I think that the video will give you a very good feeling and taste about what Jugalbandi can do. I will say it's a video that one of the sponsors of the project is Microsoft. So it's a video that Microsoft created, but it's very interesting to understand.
मैं एक किसान हूँ अपने ही गांव में हमारी ज़मीन है 2 एकड़ उसमें ही हम खेती उगाते हैं रबी की और खरीफ की दोनों फसलें उगाते हैं जिसमें गेहूं है ज्वार है बाजरा है तिल्ली है सरसों है बट यहाँ मेवात में अंदर बहुत से गांवों में न्यूज़पेपर नहीं पहुँच पाते हैं ये सरकारी स्कीमें पहुँचती हैं लेकिन ग्रामीण इलाकों में लोग योजनाओं की स्कीम पहुँच भी नहीं पाती है
These are all communities living in media dark areas, which means that penetration of traditional media like television and radio is very sparse. There's also literacy challenges, so things like newspapers have a very low access in these areas.
In India, we have 22 constitutionally recognized languages, but apart from that, we have more than 100, almost 120 languages. Being able to provide justice to each and every citizen in their own language, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity.
Jugalbandi is a chatbot that we built to solve two problems. One is this linguistic divide and the technological divide. We collected millions of parallel sentences for machine translation. We collected thousands of hours of data for speech recognition. And then we built state-of-the-art models on top of it using Parsini speech recognition models and Azure's OpenAI. So these capabilities allows us to understand language, transcribe it, translate it, and also synthesize it back in the form of speech.
चचा यू जुगलबंदी है, यहाँ पे हम लिख के भी और बोल के भी कुछ भी जो हमें स्कीम चाहिए सरकारी योजना है उनके बारे में जानकारी ले सका।
मैं किसान हूँ, मुझे सरकारी योजना कैसे प्राप्त हुई।
मेरा नाम जुगलबंदी है। मैं एक असिस्टेंट हूँ जो आपकी सरकारी योजना के बारे में जानने में और उसके लिए एनरोल करने में आपकी मदद करूँगी।
तो वहाँ से हमें लिखित में भी और ऑडियो में भी दोनों तरीके से जवाब आया और किस किस डॉक्यूमेंट्स की ज़रूरत पड़ती है और किस किस फॉर्म की ज़रूरत पड़ती है।
The Ministry of Electronics and IT in the country has been working on this for the last 5 years now. And when ChatGPT was launched, that was really the catalyst for us being able to bring these pieces together. We've been able to categorize the diversity of India as an innovation opportunity. And if you're able to do that successfully, you're able to do it for the world.
So that is Jugalbandi, and I think that what is really powerful about this example is that it addresses some of the problems that we have in terms of access. So it works in 9 languages right now. India has more than 160, but it extends beyond the 5 main languages. You can interact with it via voice. So there is a question about, overcoming the literacy and, just interacting via text. And it's also works via WhatsApp. Which has a lot of penetration. And the last thing is that it simplifies the interaction with schemes, right? So a lot of times these government schemes, which, most people in India have access to this. In general, Sachin, who is the founder of Agami, estimated that about 600 million people in India have access to some kind of government scheme. And they now can interact with Jugalbandi. This slide is a little bit, I think, what are the challenges that still exist, right? So one is adoption. Technology is not the final answer, so just having this available is not going to make the information accessible. So Jugalbandi really partners with local actors that can support the use, right? So it's not, the solution is not just the model, but the activation of the ecosystem. Of course, as I said, WhatsApp is accessible, but you could make it even more accessible if it's just via voice. There's a problem of costs, especially when you're talking about a technology available for 600 million people, right? So it's basically not sustainable to be just using these large models, and even connection, right? So if you can develop small models that can run locally, then that makes it even more accessible. So Jugalbandi is open source, so you can just deploy it for other contents. They also created this Jugalbandi Studio, which makes it even simpler. You can just describe what you're trying to do, and it generates a new solution just based in natural language. So they're in beta. And then, so here in the next slide, you have a little bit more the links that you can either access the code or the studio. It's still in beta. And that's it. And do we have time for questions?
Thank you, Dani, for the great presentation. So, do we have a question? Yes, I see one over here. No, we have to get it on the audio track, so yes.
Okay. Thanks for the presentation, too, really interesting. This is more about the second project, just because I think the question is only relevant to it. I was wondering if you have thoughts about the scalability of basing these technologies on AI. Like we heard a lot, like for the whole conference, about problems with sustainability with AI that also affect like Global South even more. So are there worries about that? Are there plans for that? I don't ask you because you emphasized using different models that might not require as much.
I think that it's actually a little bit also related to what Adriano was saying. I think that we need to be aware about the challenges, especially when we are thinking about the ecosystem impact, and intentionally think about what is needed, so we are not just looking at the benefits without ignoring the very real and concrete risks that all of this, calculation take. I think that what we talk a lot in our network is this idea of no extremes, right? So what is the right balance in a way that it's beneficial for humanity, but also let's sit down and talk about the risks. And I think that as, our role is to make sure that these two conversations are happening and not some people talking about one side and some people talking about the other side.
Thank you for your question. Do we have any other questions from you guys? No. Thank you very much. I'm sure that Adriano and Dani will be around. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Yes. Thank you.